Yeah, you mentioned pornography, and I kind of want to loop back to that because that does seem like such a huge driver of a lot of this stuff, I think. I mean, you mentioned about how our kind of social scripts about sex have, and they shape our desires. They shape our sexual desires, right? There's this kind of like feedback loop. And I think pornography and the widespread, not even just availability of it, but it kind of just permeates, I think, our culture in so many ways. And it's, you mentioned the feminist sex wars of the 80s, you know, the kind of anti-porn stuff. And the porn they were fighting about was pretty tame compared to, I think, a lot of the porn that's on offer now. There's this like escalation that happens in pornography as things get, more and more kind of violent, more and more degrading. And then, you know, people consume that and then expect their sexual encounters or they consume this kind of artificial depiction of these things, and then they expect to kind of have that in the real world, like that Girls episode shows. So I think that it's hard to underestimate, I think, the power that pornography is having over just our social scripts, I guess, that we have about sex.
Yeah. I talked to a number of young men for this book too, not just women. And another story that stuck out to me was this guy I talked to about porn. And he was telling me about how at one period in his life, he was watching porn so regularly that he realized that it was interfering with his ability to like connect with and even sexually respond to real life women. Even a woman who he was dating, who he really liked and, thought might have actually been a life partner. He had sort of trained himself to respond to this kind of avatar on a screen in these certain acts that he didn't know how to deal with the person in real life. And, he chose to stop watching porn after that, which seems like it was the right move for him.
Is this the guy who he decided to stop watching porn? Okay, by the way, if you're listening to this around small children, you might want to put on some headphones. But
I know. I was like, I don't know who this podcast is.
No, but I do want to mention this anecdote because I think it's such a good illustration of what you're talking about, right? Where the moment when he decided to stop watching porn was that he had this wet dream, but the wet dream was about him opening his laptop. Is this
right?
Yeah.
It did not involve humans at all.
It was about so this kind of erotic sexual response to his computer, and to his credit, he kind of realized like, whoa, this isn't good. Yeah, this is a problem, right? So I think it almost becomes like this. And again, here I'm kind of appealing back to that kind of ancient philosophy idea of desire, but it becomes like this slavery, right? When we put so few boundaries around our desires, then our desires begin to become these, out of control forces that actually enslave us and dehumanize us, right? We kind of almost lose our dignity when we become so, addicted to like a laptop, right? I mean,
yeah. And dehumanization, I think, is an important part to loop back to another point in our conversation when, we asked about what kind of desires are good or bad or worse than others. And again, it's so contextual, but I suggest in the book that, we should question and we should actually think that, desires that move us to degrade people or dehumanize people or objectify people are worse, in fact, than the desire to give care or to love a person.
Right.
Because again, people are humans with human dignity intact. And if we want to treat them as humans, we have to sort of learn how to do so. And I feel like much mainstream porn is really centered around this ideal of objectification in that, it's shot for the purposes of consumption. It's shot as, two people doing a thing. They're not necessarily personalities. You're not asked to feel for them. A woman especially is, a hole or a mouth or, an object to be used. Right. And then you can turn it off and click away. And that can train us, especially because, sex carves such deep channels in the mind, basically, to to learn to desire certain things, whether it's, you know, fetishes that are harmful around gender, sex, age, etc., or, you know, just certain states of mind, whether it's a fantasy of availability that, you know, doesn't exist in real life, or the expectation that you have so much choice and can do whatever you want that's not actually true. And as those things that we've trained ourselves into sort of bleed out into our real life, because there's so much evidence at this point that, you know, the things that we watch can and do, in fact, have an impact on our psyche, this can become bad not just for us, but for society as a whole.